possible dramatic change could be on the horizon for smallmouth bass anglers as the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency has proposed new regulations and potentially some sticker shock for Chickamauga, Nickajack, and Guntersville. I'm joined now with Channel 9's outdoor contributor Richard Sims. Now, Richard, what are the current regulations for smallmouth bass, and how could this potentially be changing in the future?
Well, the background is that about 25 years ago, a group of anglers from Chattanooga went to the State Wildlife Resources Agency and asked them to change the regulations for smallmouth bass in order to promote smallmouth bass that grew bigger. So for 25 years, anglers have only been allowed to keep one smallmouth bass per day, and it had to be at least 18 inches long. Trying to encourage more larger smallmouth bass. But now that might change depending upon the vote here in a couple of weeks, where now you're going to be able to catch 5 smallmouth bass of any size. You can only keep one, or would only be able to keep one more than 16 inches long. But you use the phrase sticker shock. Area anglers here, consider smallmouth bass, the epitome.
The cream of the crop.
The cream of the crop. And it's always been catch and release for the most part. And now, if this new regulation passes, the Wildlife Agency is going to be encouraging anglers to keep smallmouth bass, even the smaller ones. Now ask me why.
I'll ask you why right now.
What's happened is years ago, anglers brought what's known as an Alabama spotted bass into Parksville Lake up in Polk County. And over the years, those Alabama smallmouth bass have migrated downstream, and now they're throughout the Tennessee River system. And they have found that they hybridize with smallmouth bass. And so it's changing the genetics of our native smallmouth bass.
So it's not the original smallmouth bass that a lot of these anglers and people think of when they think of a smallmouth bass.
Right. The biologists say that at least 50% of the smallmouth bass that they catch and run DNA tests on, at least 50% of the smallmouth bass out there now have spotted bass genes. A lot of anglers have known this for a long time, because sometimes when you catch a smallmouth bass, you can see characteristics of both fish. They call them mean mouth locally. And so it's changing the DNA structure of our native smallmouth bass. The new regulation, they say, is not going to eliminate the problem.
That's important.
If you consider it a problem. They're just trying to neutralize it and maintain status quo. But the most important thing is that right now, the Wildlife Agency is asking fishermen to give them their opinion on this regulation change. You can go online. I assume you've put that chyron on the screen, and of where you can go online and provide your comments. Tell them how you feel about this regulation change. Of course, there's a lot of other potential changes, but this is the big one that really affects our area.
Now, I believe that room for comment is up until February 15th. You can go there and write about how you feel about this. Now, Richard, you're pretty ingrained in this community. Have you talked to any anglers recently about how they've specifically been feeling about this?
Most of it's been online exchange, social media, and some anglers are just, they're like, oh no, I'd never keep a smallmouth bass. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But a lot of anglers, when they read the reason why they're doing it, they're kind of like, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I can see that. Some of them even say, we have noticed that we're not catching as many trophy smallmouth bass as we used to. And this is in part due to the change in the DNA structure and the genetics. And, so from what I've heard so far, it's kind of a mixed reaction. Some people, just because they cherish the smallmouth bass so much, they just can't imagine the possibility of taking one home and putting it in a frying pan. It's just really foreign to them. But others say, yeah, this may be a good idea.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how those comments turn out, and more importantly, how the wildlife commissioners vote on the new regulation.
Makes sense. So if you have a specific side of this argument, again, that Richard has been telling us, there is a chance for you to go online up until February 15th to have your voice heard and to leave your comment. Richard, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Always enjoy it.